Well, so with that wealth of information, what else do you need? But a lot more explanation. And so we have the specialists in the studio to help us do that. And Badi Buruku is a financial specialist expert with the World Bank, travels around, has a wealth of experience in this very sector, and is here with us. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
With your experiences elsewhere, you should say that this is a growing phenomenon, mobile money banking.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing a lot happening across the continent. The other markets that are, traditionally receiving more marketing and more hype are Kenya, Tanzania. They have, 63% penetration of mobile money in Kenya, 38% penetration in Tanzania. So those usually get all the attention. But our focus at CGAP is really looking at where the market could be promoted more, could be given a little bit more support. So that's why we're now more focused in Ghana, where things are happening at a very rapid pace.
You mentioned CGAP, and I know that it's what you're in charge, or you're in charge with the World Bank. What's CGAP?
Okay, so CGAP is a unit within the World Bank that is focused on financial inclusion only. So we undertake various measures. We do research, we do small projects, but not so much projects, but we just try and push the envelope in terms of what projects can get financial inclusion moving. And in Ghana, we have seen that it's really mobile money that's driving that. So that's our focus, digital finance.
Okay, great. And you did a survey on that?
Yes.
As a country, how have we progressed on it?
Okay, well, I mean, the study done by CGAP was the first nationally representative survey on financial inclusion for the past 5 years or so. And so we were able to, through this survey, try and do an assessment of how far Ghana has progressed in that time. And, as your infographic showed, there is quite a lot of inclusion. For example, now, about 75% of Ghanaians have access to some form of financial inclusion, whereas that was 66% about 5 years ago. So essentially, exclusion has almost halved. It's fallen by 43% within that period. So there's a lot of activity within the financial inclusion space, but it must be said, much of this can be attributed to mobile money.
So does it mean that usage has doubled over the last 5 years? Is that the case?
Yeah, exclusion has fallen by half, almost half, 43%. So what has happened is that about 34% of Ghanaians had access to a bank account in 2010. Now 36% of Ghanaians have access to a bank account. About 15% of Ghanaians had access to an informal form of financial service, your village savings, your susu and whatnot. Now about 17% of them have access. 7% of Ghanaians had access to a mobile money account in 2010. Now that amount has tripled. So you will see that it's really the access to the non-bank formal, which is mobile money and MFIs. But MFIs are a smaller portion of that. Really, mobile money is what's driving this great increase in financial access.
When I was given this very literature that I was going to talk to you, I started reading a bit about it. And in Tanzania, I think the rest of East Africa and Kenya, you get to see that a lot more of the rural communities and those inhabitants in there. We're using that a lot more. Is that the same scenario we have in our country?
Yeah, we're seeing actually that mobile money is contributing to a leveling of access in rural areas. In areas like, let's say, Upper West, where there was less access to financial services overall, there's now more access to mobile money there than there is to any other form of financial service. With women as well, women are just as likely to have access to a bank account as they are access to a mobile money account, which is quite phenomenal. So when you look at rural, poor populations and the youth especially, have the highest level of access when it comes to mobile money only. They have the lowest level of access when it comes to banks, but they are now able to use mobile money. And I want to emphasize that mobile money is not just for sending and receiving money. It's for you to be able to save, because a lot of people have no safe place to keep their money. We still find that...
You can save through the mobile?
Well, yes. I mean, in other countries, a lot of people do tend to put money on their phone for the express purpose of keeping it there safely, rather than putting it under the mattress or, all of those mechanisms which are not so safe. People do want to put it on their phone and keep it there.
So
for
digitally, you have your money kept there.
Exactly.
Right.
And as you know, the regulations now have I guess they have a component where users are supposed to earn interest on the money that they save, or the money that they transact on mobile money. That is yet still to be finalized, to be negotiated, but at some point that's really intended to
That's going to evolve, you say?
Yes, that's going to evolve, and people will be able to have a safe place to store their money. If you lose your phone, fine, you just get another SIM, you verify, and you still have your savings on your phone. Digitally.
All right. And so for all of us around that, we've seen that a lot more of the collection of or the transactions through mobile money is very much on. And so this is what we did. We went out there, spoke to somebody who does the transactions, somebody who is involved in collecting money, a mobile money vendor. And this is what the person told us.
I've been in this business for more than 5 years. With this business, it's very effective. Yeah, it's convenient, and it's a necessity in the system now. So, in a way, it's lucrative. Yeah.
And which category of people would you say visit your shop to patronize the mobile money service?
Well, in my specs, I think I have all the categories. Yeah, from down to the lower class to the higher class, because this area comprises of corporate people, including household people also. So all categories come here. Yeah.
And how efficient would you say this mode of payment is?
With the efficiency. Okay, with the efficiency, I can say it's very easy. Yes, and it's secured also. Yeah, it's very secured and easy to access it at any given time. Yeah. There are challenges, especially with the network. Sometimes when the network has they are doing some maintenance, it affects the system. And also with transaction, fraudsters has also entered into it, and that's another challenge that people are facing. And scammers are also patronizing it a lot. So these are some of the challenges that we are facing: the scammers, the fraudsters, and the network challenges. Yeah. But apart from that, it's a very lucrative business. Yeah.
But it's not only those who tend to do the transactions, that's collect the money, etc., who are involved in it. Apparently, we have quite a number of mobile money subscribers who happen to be small business owners. So how do they use the service to facilitate their business? We spoke to one person also who is a business owner, Benjamin Esiamamanfo, owns the Royal Diadem Footwear Garage. Now, we asked him particularly, how does he use the service? And this is what he had to say.
I use mobile money to transact business. Clients send cash in when they want to make purchases from our shop, and then pay in for orders they've made. Mobile money service, I've used it for about 18 months. 1 year, 6 months. Transaction with mobile money is easy, accessible, and then convenient. Only challenge I've faced so far is you go and then they say the network is bad. There's no network for you to access your cash. So you just have to wait or go to a different place or something. Yeah.
And we also spoke to the last category of the daily users. And just like me, we use it for day-to-day transactions. And he also shared his experiences.
Most Ghanaians don't own an account, and the only way you can transfer money to them is through mobile money. Yes. So okay. I find it to be convenient and easily accessible.
And how would you describe the mobile money service?
They have its advantages and disadvantages. Most of the time, the network issue. You will send money, and for hours and days, they've not received them, and it's so worrying. Other than that, I think it's good.
How do you think the service can be improved?
By improving the network system. and also checking the fraud aspect of it. Because most of the time you do transfer and it's like you miss one of the numbers and it's on somebody's line and the person has already withdrawn it, only if the person is a registered member of the mobile money.
Well, I think for me, it makes life easy. It's, it's very convenient. Going to the bank to queue, and it's very fast. Sending money to somebody in the village, or when people are working for you elsewhere, you want to pay somebody, you don't have to go and pay into the person's bank account. All you need to do is load your wallet and easily push the money into the person's wallet. So for me, because of the convenience, that's the reason why I'm still using mobile money.
Have you encountered any challenges?
Oh, yes. Initially when they started, I think the charges were not as much as we are paying now. Because those days when I send mobile money from my wallet to another wallet, I was not paying anything. But I think now you pay some percentage on the transaction. That is one, but I can understand they're also into business, so they have to make some money. I think the major challenge has to do with the network. So when the network is down, that means you cannot push money to anybody or you cannot withdraw money from your wallet. That's the only problem that I encounter with the service.
So we all do experience some of these challenges when we encounter the service. We tend to use the service once in a while. So it means that, buddy, there are intense usage experiences. That also tends to create a certain level of traffic, is that not it? So these challenges.
Yeah.
Can that be an excuse enough?
Well, the providers of mobile money always can do better in terms of making sure that the service has no glitches. And I think that's in part, that is ongoing. They're all focused on the fact that, network downtimes, which is the biggest challenge, is not something that they enjoy. When the network is down, that means they don't have the opportunity to make money. So they're also pushing, and also coverage across geographic areas. Some people will complain the more rural you get, as with voice network, the same thing with mobile money network. So those are areas where, of course, providers need to work harder. There needs to also be probably more education about how to use mobile money, about how to ensure the safety of your account. For example, there's some cases of fraud. There are more cases of fraud in other countries for sure, but there are small cases of fraud here where people share their PIN numbers with agents because they don't think that they can enter their PIN number on their own or whatnot. These are small instances like that where people need to be educated. You need to maintain the secrecy of your PIN number. You don't need to tell people X, Y, and Z information so that you can protect yourself. So these are the types of challenges.
Who needs to do the education? Is it the service providers or let's say agencies like you?
Yeah,
World
no,
Bank, civil society.
I think the onus is on the providers who are to educate customers on the proper use of their products.
Okay. From what I get from my experience of using it, and constantly from the various interactions we have with the ordinary Ghanaian, you get to find that there's a lot more usage. And so now we've increased the number of people who tend to use it. That also tends to increase some of these challenges that we're mentioning.
Yeah.
In your survey, have you noticed some of these, that people are overly relying on this, that this is not a mainstream banking service and so, etc., etc.?
Well, people are overly relying on it. Some people are. For example, women are overly reliant on mobile money as opposed to other forms of financial service. It's not a problem because access is what we want to do, what we want to achieve. I would say that it's no more a problem than somebody being overly reliant on their bank account. As long as you have money in there, you can use your bank as much or as little as you want. Mobile money is, as long as you have money on your account and you are using it in the correct manner, then you can use it as much or as little as you want. We want to encourage usage because with more usage, you get more use cases, which is that you move just from remittances, sending back and forth, to savings, to paying bills. In my country, Uganda, I don't have to leave my house to pay my water, to pay my electricity. Rwanda, for example, has now implemented an e-tax, an M-tax portal where you pay your small taxes. Our individual taxes are paid on the mobile phone. You avoid a lot of queues, a lot of time wasting, a lot of money for transport. So there's a lot of things that come along with additional usage, which essentially
But all
develop
that
the
comes
market.
with a lot more experience. Once you start using, you start bettering or improving
Yeah.
the networking. The
I think
services,
it's a function of that, you know, better services and whatnot. And also, as usage increases, you have other companies who come in and they say, actually, what service can I provide on the rails of mobile money? What can I add on top of it that will be beneficial to me? What additional services can I provide which I can use mobile money to disseminate? So that's when the ecosystem starts to grow. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. It creates a certain synergy. Because,
Exactly.
Because in this world, we're very much symbiotic. But
Exactly.
in Kenya, for example, they have M-Pesa. Is
Yes.
that the name?
Yeah, the main.
What experiences can we draw from it? Looking at what your reports have been following the survey in Ghana.
Okay, so you know, M-Pesa is the big success story, right? So everybody looks to
Yes,
them.
every literature tends
Yeah,
to
everybody
point
looks
us in
to
that very
them.
direction.
But you know, there are some things that you can learn from that market, both in terms of what to do and what not to do. Right? What to do are the some of the regulatory aspects that they have taken, some of the ways in which the main provider engages with the regulator. There's a lot of lessons to be learned there, and in fact, much of the development of the regulations in Ghana took into account the regulations as they were developed in Kenya. But you know, Kenya has some challenges too because it's such a huge market. They also have some very substantial fraud instances there, which one can learn from before they happen here. How do you learn from them? How do you identify? How do you mitigate those fraud instances? And then you focus on developing the knowledge to identify and mitigate and avoid fraud instances here. That helps you to avoid some of the pitfalls that have happened in a more, you know, more mature market.
Competition always means that people would want to have a certain hold on a certain market or competition. And so monopoly is critical for many businesses, of course. They want to make profit. But as far as the telecom sector in our country has been, our experiences have shown that interconnectivity is always a difficulty for many of the networks. They don't want to operate on leverage on people's platforms or each other's platforms, etc. Doesn't it create a certain problem for the network or the usage of mobile money network services?
I mean, our interest is primarily the user, right? So for a user, you want to be able to, just like I can call Tigo number as an MTN user, I should be able to send money from my Airtel account, mobile money account, to a Voda mobile money account. That's the ideal. And in fact, the market is moving in that direction. There are a lot of discussions now about something called interoperability, which is essentially how to get it to be that one can fluidly send and receive money from all different mobile money networks. Providers, and that's ongoing. It's actually even still quite new in Tanzania. It's been piloted a few years ago.
So it means that, for example, I use mobile Vodafone. I can just quickly send to MTN mobile money.
Yeah,
that's where,
ideally
that's where we
want.
hope that the discussion
exactly.
will get to.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
That would be so great.
Yeah,
and we hope
be.
that comes to fruition. For normal banking services, and recently we just had problems with microfinance companies in our country in which their monies were not kept well by those companies, etc. All the accusations and the criticism being on the Bank of Ghana not supervising them adequately. Okay. But here there's no supervision.
Actually, that's not right. I mean, Bank of Ghana is now supervising what we call e-money issuers. The regulations require that you have to set up a separate company that is just focused on mobile money, and that component of your business will be regulated by the Bank of Ghana. So Bank of Ghana will be requiring them to submit on a monthly basis transaction level data, volumes, information on the fraud, complaints that have been gotten, information about how many agents there are, agent distribution. So, you know, Bank of Ghana is coming up in terms of its supervisory power or supervisory capacity when it comes to this sector. It's important because it's a big sector and it's a growing sector, and they do need to be supervised.
Because we've noticed that the normal commercial banking services or perhaps operators may be thinking they are competing with this because we know this was started by the mobile phone operators.
Telcos, right.
How do we do the integration into the financial system? for regular banking operations?
Right. Well, I mean, mobile money, well, the telcos are not allowed to hold deposits, right? So banks actually benefit in the growth of mobile money, because the more money that comes to the telcos, the more money has to be deposited in banks on behalf of the telcos, number one. Number two, we're seeing in other markets that there's not really a sort of a competitive aspect between banks and mobile money, because actually you're seeing that they're growing together. And in countries like Kenya, for example, there's hardly, I mean, maybe 50% of bank account users also have a mobile money account. So actually it's just the flexibility. And finally, mobile money has much lower transaction limits than banks, right? I mean, once you get above a 5,000 CD single transaction, you need to use a bank account to make that transaction.
With your
in a day.
experiences, would you say there have not been those fears expressed by the normal commercial banks?
Yes, they have been. They have been. And I think
Don't
it's
you think
because
those fears are genuine?
they are, well, the fears are genuine, because fear is an emotion you can't control, but it may not be justified. Because if you understand the evolution of mobile money and its intersection with banking in other markets, you will see that actually this is something which is beneficial to everyone.
So those markets, what does it mean? Because I know the banking sector thrives on deposits.
Exactly.
And that also tends to give the indication of the inflows. And
Yeah.
then what the outflows would
Yeah,
be.
and those deposits are positively affected by deposits from providers, mobile money providers.
So you're saying, let's create a scenario. Because let's take a mobile service company, let's say MTN, Vodafone, etc. Because they're collecting a lot more of the cash, it ends up in the bank.
It has to. They cannot hold the money.
I know, but that is why you're saying at the end of the day, you're growing together.
Yes. And from all evidence that we're seeing, bank account holders who have mobile money use them for different purposes, right? Because there are some transaction limits.
For
because,
ease of transactions more.
yeah, I mean, there are some transactions. Let's say, for example, you are paying some of your workers. Are you going to send them a wire transfer, or are you going to send them mobile money? Most of the time, people are going to say that you should send them a mobile money transfer. But if you're paying 1 year, 2 years rent in one go, which is the unfortunate situation in Ghana, you're not going to be able to make a mobile money transaction. It has to be a bank account transaction. So it's about choice and convenience.
I was reading some literature, I say 3 or 4 days ago, that talks about for the first quarter of this year, transactions, was it for one of the networks, was in excess of 2-point-something billion or something of the sort. How is that going to be a big thing and contribute to economic growth in the future? Or if it is not now in those countries which have already seen the growth in mobile money services?
Well, I think it's actually an indicator of economic activity rather than a driver of economic activity. You know, I think
it's not rather a driver, it's rather an indicator.
Yeah, it's rather an indicator, because I think the growth in mobile money doesn't itself generate more mobile money, right? But what you see is that the amount of activity, right, the amount of movement of money in the markets is showing you that there is quite a lot of activity, and some of that happens to be on mobile money.
Can we use it as an indicator to show that because we have a lot of transactions, perhaps people have a lot of cash to spend? And so in that
I don't know if you can make that
and so in that sense, it could be an indicator of...
Well, Roland, let me assume that...
Not in the right sense of a variable as an economic indicator.
I think you have a set amount of money in the market. Some of it is under the mattress.
Yeah.
Some of it is in the bank. More of it is now moving within the mobile money space. But I don't think we're creating more.
All right.
Right. So the economy is still where it is.
In the survey that you conducted, financial inclusion survey, we know that our regular banks have always been worried about the poor savings rate in our population. Did you try to find out whether that is also contributing to increasing savings? Because that way or the other, it's a platform to put in your money somewhere digitally or virtually.
Right. You're asking if the access to mobile money is contributing to higher savings rates?
We can translate that to me.
Yeah, you know, to be honest with you, Ghana is still a bit nascent when it comes to that.
We're very infantile, you say?
No, I wouldn't use the word infantile. Nascent. And certainly when it comes to savings, we haven't seen an overwhelming spike in savings just because people are saving on mobile money. But what we are seeing is that people are tending to keep money on their phone for specific uses which they know they need to put the money aside for: school fees, medical bills, funeral bills. There are people who are starting to just put the money on the phone just to keep it there. But whether they are saving more because they have a more convenient place to save, we don't know that yet.
In the other countries where this has become a success story, and notably we have to mention Kenya,
Right.
maybe perhaps your country, Tanzania, etc.
Yeah.
Do people use it for saving platforms?
Yes.
I mean, just purposely for saving, not because they want to pay a DSTV bill or electricity bill.
No, there are higher levels of people who use their phone just to save. I mean, they may
They got
transact.
money, so they got to the nearest vendor and they said, look, I have 100 Ghana, let me put it on my mobile
Yes.
money because it's safe. Then I don't get to spend it
Yes.
because it's not a cash with me.
Yes.
We're seeing that scenario.
Yes.
Are we seeing that in Ghana too?
That's
Oh.
what we can't tell yet.
Okay, but we're likely to see that.
Yeah, we're likely to see that.
The service providers and let's say agencies like you, the regulator or regulators, etc., how can they do the congregation or aggregation of the education in such a way that there will be some regulation or perhaps some finesse to, if somebody puts money on a mobile platform and then it can be traced, let's say that person is demised or something.
Oh, so I mean, is your concern about the tracking of mobile
Yeah, because
money?
we're saying savings. In the regular banking system, if you save, there are documents showing that this gentleman saved, etc.
Deposited
And that
a certain
person,
amount, right?
yes, or those are deposits.
Right.
And that person, let's say, passed on,
Okay.
can have his forebears or
Yeah.
or next of kins go and access.
Yeah.
But here you
actually-
put large amount of money on a mobile saving. I'm not saying you can put enough, just like you do for a regular
Yeah.
banking system.
Actually, I don't know the answer to that
Because we haven't
question.
thought of that,
No.
have we?
I mean, I personally haven't thought of that. There may be a system within the providers where if your account is dormant for X amount of time and somebody comes with a death certificate or something, they may be able to access. I don't know. But
We need to think about that, don't you think so?
Yeah.
Do they think about, have they thought about it in Kenya?
To be frank, I don't know. I think this is a commercial, this is something that, a commercial decision, which I just don't know
Yeah,
about.
it's just
Yeah.
beyond you. I
Yeah.
know. But for all the noise that we're making, etc., would you say that it's an industry that is going to grow in Ghana? Looking
Oh,
at how we've seen the
absolutely.
simultaneous growth in Kenya, in Tanzania, and I know Uganda. your
Well,
country.
in this market, I mean, people, as your infographic said, you have a higher percentage of your population that has the required IDs to get a mobile phone. You have a higher percentage of your population that has use or access, ownership or access to a mobile phone. You have a higher percent of your population than, Kenya and Tanzania, Rwanda, all of the above, who are numerate, and you have a higher percentage who are literate, financially literate. All of those things contribute to the ripeness of an environment for the uptake of mobile money. Ghana is ready to go.
I say. There's a question I think I skipped. It's about not everybody is educated. I mean, in terms of formal education.
Yes.
Not everybody can read and write.
Yes.
But people can see numbers and they can mention
Yes.
numbers or
Yes.
interpret numbers.
Yeah.
For those who are not educated, is it a barrier in the transaction processes that you've noticed?
Well, if you are completely illiterate, it is still a barrier. There's no mobile money provider who has set up a system where the commands are just voice commands and you can then press, on your phone based on a voice command. Nobody has gotten to that level yet. So at the very basic level, one does need to be able to read.
Read and write.
Well, I mean,
At least
on
you
your
should be
phone,
able
you
to
should be able
interpret
to read and interpret, because on the phone you're just pressing 1, 2, 3, as a response to a command. So you don't need to be able to really spell out anything. The longest insert of information you will put is the phone number to which you are sending money to, right? So you need to at least be able to understand numbers and to be able to read and interpret the commands. But
The
otherwise,
World Bank, how deep is the collaboration between you and the service providers and the rest of the financial system?
Okay, so I mean, the
your
World
program,
Bank.
your program.
So yes, I was going to make the distinction. So CGAP is working very closely with the providers to help them to, explore the market, to develop the best practices they can. We want to encourage a healthy growth to the market. So anytime they think that, what's happening in Kenya on this particular issue, what's happening on that particular issue, CGAP is available to do research, to bring in experts, to convene workshops and whatnot, to get the share of information. And we also try to encourage as much as possible the providers engaging with the Bank of Ghana directly on specific regulatory issues, because they should be able to talk to each other as well. But CGAP is a resource on the ground and has been for the past 4 or 5 years in Ghana, where anything comes to mobile money, we are available. We're not saying that we know all the information, but we certainly will be able to access the right people who know the information and bring them in.
Oh, great. So you just need a basic device, mobile phone, and then you can start using,
and
undertaking transactions.
Absolutely, and about
easy,
30% of Ghanaians, from our understanding, use smartphones. And smartphones are where you can really get interesting with the additional.
About 30% of Ghanaians who use mobile phones.
Yes, my mistake. But your lowest level of
the penetration, you mean?
Yeah, I think it's rural
18.
women are the ones who have the least access to mobile phones, and they're at 70%. So you're pretty high in terms of your mobile phone usage.
We're pretty high, really.
Yeah, really. I mean,
that's good to know.
Yeah. So, but you're right to correct me. About 30% of those who use mobile phones have a smartphone, and that's when you can get more complex in terms of your use cases.
Okay, so by popular request, my popular request, we'll have to play you the infographics again. When we come back, we'll say we'll have a final wrap up to our discussions, and then Buddy can leave the studios, but give us some good advice on what we should be looking forward to. The infographics once again. Great voice there. Remember the voice, right? M. Morrison. And that gives us also an insight into how we need to, well, perhaps now have a certain platform and move on from there. What usually should be the projection for the sector, if you have to do any estimation, that for the next 5 years we'll be growing at what rate?
Wow.
I'll be hazarding a certain guess.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's a multiple, right? Because if we take a look at a 5-year period in Ghana, just within this, 5-year period, it's been a tripling of mobile money. So I just think it's going to be exponential. Unless there's any, unforeseen issue that comes up, I suspect that we could be seeing, for sure, the levels of penetration that we're seeing in Kenya. Why not? That would be 7 million additional, Ghanaians that would be connected through mobile money. And we have all the conditions to reach that.
Well, thank you very much. Buddy Buruku. Buddy Buruku is with the CGAP program of the World Bank. And, well, what did they say I should say? Financial sector specialist.
Yes,
That's
something
great.
like that.
Buddy, thanks for passing through the studio.
My pleasure.
It's been an edition of AM Business this morning, and we've been focusing on mobile money. We know that it's an industry that is growing, expected to grow a lot more, because all of us tend to partake in the whole transaction daily, if not almost every hour. But then as we increase our interactions, how do we also want to make sure that we increase advocacy, to make sure the right regulations are in place, to let a lot more of the consumers become a lot more aware about what their rights or what their responsibilities also are, and the service providers also, how to make sure they improve the services or the platforms on which this very industry operates. But we hope that we can have further discussions on this on AM Business in our further episodes on this very program, the AM Show. But that'll be it for now. We're taking a break, and then when we come back, we'll have a lot more for you. Do stay on.
AM Business was brought to you by
EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.